love it. I love a hotel. Oh, that sounds fun. I just sat in my room watching horror movies for 3 weeks.
That's awesome.
Jumping into each other's arms with every scare. Sorry, that's not So, hi, this is my Q&A. It's my last thing I'm doing for, I gotta run out of here to catch a plane. So this is our last time together. So who's got a question? Everyone's like, oh. So let's make it count. Yeah, go ahead. We'll start with you. I like your stuff.
So, I was wondering, like, what is the best way to, like, really, like, do you know, like, any diaphragm exercises, or, like, do you, like, are you allowed to drink tea, like, in the booth? Like, that's what I'm trying to do whenever you're recording.
Yeah, it depends on who your engineer is. Some engineers are very particular about not drinking or not eating in the booth. I mean, you certainly can't eat in the booth because you'll get stuff in your teeth, and it's like, hey, yeah, and they just don't want crap on their mic. Most of the time, though, like, I'll have coffee, I'll have tea, like, it doesn't matter. As long as you know your voice well enough to know that, oh, if I drink this coffee, it's not gonna make me incapable of doing this voice. But engineers will hear your voice in a way that you don't. They're like, yeah, you have a throat gremlin right now. And you're like, what are you talking about? So it's pretty much engineer's call. If you're ever showing up to a new studio to do a gig, never come in with coffee or tea, unless they offer. If they offer, then that's fair game. But usually just come in with water. Room temperature water is best for your voice. Cold water can make the cords shrivel up a little bit or tighten up a little bit. It's a little known fact. And hot water is fine, but you know, it can also burn you and get all over you, and you'll be in an uptake screaming, and they can't keep that. So usually the etiquette is, if you're ever going to an audition or a studio for the first time to lay down track on something, just room temperature water is it. And if they offer you something else, then yeah, then that's cool. But other than that, yeah. As far as like diaphragmatic exercises, oh, there's tons of them. There's tons of vocal exercises. There are tons of warm-up techniques, all of which are covered in that book I told you about. By the way, there's a lot of good ones. And they have the book, at least in one of its editions. I think now they just have like links to audio files online. But they used to have a CD on it that had examples of all the exercises, and there's tons of them. Sometimes it's really the best thing you can do for yourself, though, going in for an audition or for your first day of work on a new job in a new studio, new people that you don't know. Because I've been doing this for however long now, and I still get new gigs, and I'll be like, oh my god, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. The best thing you can do is just calm down. Right, no, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm nervous.
No, I mean...
In case he puts his notebook away. No, and well, the trick to calming down is understanding that they're on your side. The people that are recording you, and your director, and the producer, and everyone else, the client wants you to be good. So they're not like just waiting for you to screw up so they can make fun of you. No one ever has been in the booth as a director going, oh, hey guys, he's nervous, what a fake. No, it doesn't happen. They understand that you're nervous, and they're willing to work with you on that. So you just have to kind of just have to kind of learn how to sort of transmute that nervousness and use it in the performance and things like that. So yeah.
Can I give you a hug?
Can you give me a hug? People will talk, but sure. No one else give me a hug. I want a hug tough. You can like work on it like a steamroller.
Yeah, I'm
just add like an inch to my height. That's awesome. Like they don't have to raise the mic enough for me when I'm in the booth. You there in the aisle, yes. You were in the same seat you were yesterday. How did you do that? That's magical.
Oh my gosh, sure was. Yeah.
It's me again. I've been here all night.
Just a quick question. Have you gotten to listen to the Black Butler soundtrack? Because you were talking about...
Oh, yeah.
You have?
I own it, yeah.
You do? Oh, yeah.
Well, I own the copy. I make something. Oh, yes, I own the Black Butler soundtrack. I own the copyright. No, I don't. Ian Sinclair, the show's director, also played Bard, had it, and was like, oh my god, you have to listen to it. So I borrowed it and loved it, and then I went down the street to this little anime store near where I lived that I go into all the time, and they never know who I am, which is awesome. Well, because I never make a big deal out of it. I go and I take my glasses off, and usually I have a hat on. And I'll be like, oh, hey, cool. And occasionally you'll hear someone go, oh man, the sub is better. And I'll be like, must not say something, just gonna buy my stuff and get out of here. But yeah, so I bought the soundtrack, and like whenever I'm going in to record on it, I love the music. I'm a very musical person. person, so if I can find the soundtrack for a show I'm working on, especially if I know I'm going to be working on that show for several months, I will get the soundtrack, because it's a nice 30 to 40 minute drive to the studio from my house, so it gives me plenty of time to listen to the music and kind of soak up that atmosphere, and just kind of gets me there. So music is my trigger for certain characters, and definitely for Sebastian, because he's got a lot of music in his voice. He's got that sort of, he's like, Brina Palencia describes him as a cello. He's sort of this cello, everything is very smooth, and the bowing is just precise, and blah, and everyone's like, oh my God! And that happens. So that's funny. What's your best joke? My best joke? My career. No, I'm kidding. That one! I don't know. My jokes are far too adult and dark to tell you. Everyone's like, oh, boo, come back in a few years, I'll tell you then. Yeah, I have a lot of good material on my 18-up panel. I think I'm trying to think of my favorite, like, just clean, dumb joke. What's black and white and black and white and black and white and black and white and black and white? Sebastian falling down the stairs. You holding up the Triton.
So John,
You keep calling me John, and it's so weird. I feel like you're from the IRS. I love you, but please call me Lord Tatum.
I know that you got so into Okabe. I was wondering whose death, did you feel hurt you the most? Mayori's or
Kursu.
Yeah.
Or we'll just call it Christine.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to give any spoilers away for those of you that haven't seen Steins Gate, but there's some death in Steins Gate. And, please, spoilers, no. So Steins Gate, how many people have seen Steins Gate in here, by the way? Okay, cool. The rest of you, I cannot tell you how awesome the show is. You just have to experience it. It's a bit of a slow burn. It takes about 3-4 episodes for you to kind of figure out even what the hell's going on, and then you're like, oh my God, and about halfway through, it gets real. And it's an excellent show. It's very character-driven. Everything about it I love. It's one of the best representation of time travel in real life that I've ever seen. It's one of the most believable explorations of what would happen if time travel were possible that I've ever seen, and it was just fantastic to work on. It's very, very emotional, and you have been warned. If you are going to watch it, marathon it, because once episode 12 happens, you will not be able to stop. And you think, oh yeah, what? No, you won't. I promise you, I won't. And I had so many people hate on me when episode 12 premiered because the rest of it wasn't coming out for 3 months. And they were like, why would you do this to us? And I'm like, I know, right? It's nice to be here. So I think, for me, I'll tell the story of in terms of whose death bothered me the most, and some of them died more than once. Yeah, make you want to watch the show? I worked on the show as a lead adaptive writer along with Patrick Seitz, who most of you probably know as Germany from Italia. He's also an amazing writer and a very dear friend, and he and I just worked together on that show, and I was like, this show was made for us. We are the target audience for the show, and we're just going to throw everything we have at it, and we did, and it was wonderful. Colleen Klinkenbeard was the show's dub director, and she is an amazing actress and amazing director herself, so it was just a dream team of people working on this. Because I was working as the lead adaptive writer and the lead character, which I did not intend to happen, that just sort of happened, and Colleen was like, well, you realize no one else can do it now, you have to do this. I'm like, I do? Okay, and I did it, and it's an emotionally grueling show. It's got funny bits, but Okabe is in every single scene but one. Every single scene, and he's constantly talking, so I know part I was born to play, right? And he's always at 10, whether it's crying or being the mad scientist or whatever, he is always at 10. There's never I am just Okabe, never, ever. So it was 8-hour days of recording, which is rare, and then I'd go home and have to write a script for the same show, and so I just couldn't get away from him, and things got a little too real. And there's the scene in episode 14, I think it is, 13 or 14. It's hard for me to break it down in episodes because it was all so real that I'll just think of it as one big thing. It's either 13 or 14 when he is in the back of the car, and he's pleading to a certain someone not to do something he knows they're about to do, and it's and he knows what's going to happen, and they don't believe him, or they do believe him and they don't care,
that scene is so devastating in the original Japanese because the seiyuu is perfect.
Yes.
And he is just crying and saying, and it's the first time we see Okabe, really not be arrogant. I mean, he's such a, you come to understand pretty quickly in the show that he is who he is because he doesn't fit in, and he doesn't really kind of know himself very well, and he feels like an outcast, and like he's just one of those forgotten people who can't relate to that. I know I can. And that his whole arrogant thing is just kind of a mask he wears. It's his coping mechanism. So he's very big and brash and demeaning of people and laughs and he loves to freak people out. And in that scene, and that's the first scene he's in really where you just see him just not be any of those things anymore. He's very real. He's like a little kid just crying, saying, please don't do this, I'm nothing, just let this go. And it was so affecting, and when I wrote the scene, or when I was adapting the scene rather, I was so involved, so enamored of the seiyu's performance that I was in tears just watching it and then trying to write it. I'm like, this is so hard. Like have a bottle of gin next to me, and I'm just lighting a match. And then when I was writing the scene, I thought, my God, this is gonna take some chops. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I've got the acting chops to pull this scene off. So I went in the booth a couple months later when the scene, it was time to actually dub the scene and had to do it, and it was just also real for me that I actually had a breakdown in the booth and started crying and I couldn't stop, and I was like freaking out, and Colleen had to be like, Tatum? Tatum, stop crying, stop crying. She comes in and she's like, okay, you need to come and splash some water on your face. Walk around the building for a little bit, breathe, we need to talk to Michael again. And I'm seriously just a blubbering mess. I'm like walking out, like seriously, I know I make it sound funny, but I was like scaring everybody because I just ugly cry. Not the Demi Moore and Ghost, like one tear down one cheek. I look at red face, not coming everywhere, my glasses is tilted off side. And then, we tried to record the scene and I freaked out and I had to leave for a few minutes and came back just, let's do this again. And Colleen goes, well, I have some good news and an offer. Whenever Colleen says she has an offer, I'm just like, ooh, what's it gonna cost me? Because she was Yuko in Holly, so I joke. Anyway, so she said, hey, so here's the thing. I know it was very real for you, but what we actually recorded actually fits and works in the scene. If you don't want to do it again, we can just use what we've got. The down shot being that everyone will now know what you sound like when you're having a nervous breakdown. I'm like, do it, I don't want to do it again. So, if I have not plugged the show enough, if you want to hear J Michael Tatum have a genuine emotional breakdown in the booth, episode 14 of Steins Gate, you're welcome. You, pink hair, third row.
Me?
Yes.
Oh.
I love it when they're like, I love it when they... Yes, you with the pink hair and the remarkably specific costume on, and you're like, is he talking to me? Everyone does that, I love it. What's your question?
What's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you when you're recording?
There's a few.
You can name
I was recording Natalia, and I have to tell the clean version of this, but the clean version is still pretty funny. So there's a scene in Natalia where France is like reading like a bedtime story to little Italy, and he's talking about the birds and the bees, and it's like 20 seconds of just beep, and like seriously starts out with like, when two people love each other, and then beep, and then beep, and sometimes beep, and it's hysterically funny, and it's how it's done in Japanese, and Italy's like, wow. I love that scene. Well, so Jamie Markey, who is the adaptive writer for Hitalia, and just a remarkably funny woman, like one of the best comedy writers I've ever met, and a great actress herself. But she wrote that scene, and she just said, "Hey, I'm not going to put stuff here, Tatum. Just say the worst thing you can imagine, and they'll beep it out in post." I'm like, awesome. So I just said, well, when two people love each other, and here's the thing, Todd wasn't recorded in that scene yet, and I knew since the beat wasn't going to be there until post, he would hear whatever I said in his So it was 20 minutes of me going, well, when two people love each other, Todd, sometimes they get to blah, and then just, and I remember when it was done, I kind of turned to the engineer who was like, Leave it in there, make sure he hears it. And about like 2 or 3 weeks later, I knew Todd had come in to record it because I was going down the hallway to something else, and he was coming out of that booth going, hey, hey!
Oh my god.
If I was to make a 3rd season of Black Butler, probably what they've already done. I don't know. I want to see now that they're both on a level, as it were. It would be nice to see them like team up and be like a crime fighting duo. Yeah, right. That's what I would love to see. You over there with the hat and you're raising your hand. You get like a flower on your hat.
All right, you told us the story about how you met the creator of Italia, and like some odd years later, she or he or they drew France in a Snuggie.
Right.
What's the Snuggie story?
Oh, do you know the Snuggie story? Okay, so we're working on the 2nd season of Italia, and I just had to come in for a quick hour for like that episode they were doing that day, and they had a hard deadline of that afternoon. They had to finish, so I was the last person recorded on that scene. And I had just been recording Sebastian all day, and going from that accent to a French accent was tricky. And so I was going like this, and then I'd come in and be like this, and Scott Sager was like, you're too English. What the hell's going on with you? We have an hour, we have a deadline, Tatum. Come on, find your French, find your French. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And there just happened to be like this blue Snuggie in the booth that somebody, I think Caitlin Glass had been wearing, because she sometimes gets cold in that booth. That particular studio is very cold. And I just saw this blue Snuggie, and I had this ridiculous idea that if I put it on, I would just be in a better place. It was also blue, and that seemed appropriate to France, and so I just sort of turned to Scott, and I'm like, Scott, I'm getting like this like Frosty the Snowman magic top hat vibe from this thing. I'm just gonna put this on and see what happens. And I did, and oh, there was the accent, that's all I needed. The Snuggies, that's all I needed. And Scott was like, awesome, you were wearing that every time you come to record now. And I thought he was joking every time. Folded up in my chair was the blue Snuggie. When the next season came around, it was in my contract. So it became a thing, like the Snuggie became a thing that I had to wear every time recorded. And then we told that story, at a panel where we were sharing the dais with several of the Seiyu and the show's original creator. And I was telling that story, and the creator's interpreter told him it, and it was great because he just started laughing his butt off and looking at me, and I'm like, oh, he's laughing at the Snuggie story. And afterwards, he came up and like shake our hands, and when he shook my hand, he was like, Snuggie, baby. And then 3 years later, there's a scene that was new we were working on, and there's this lumber party. It's like a 2-minute scene or something, and they're all in PJs except for France, who's in a scene. You did not! Very validating. You in the very back of the glasses near the door. You've got glasses, and yes, you.
If it is a shorter season of comics like this, what would you like to see happen between Nanami and Kawa?
I would like Nanami to get a clue. That'd be nice. It'd be great if she could just own how she feels too, my God. Oh. I know. Everyone's like, no one can talk to each other in an anime. Everyone's like, no, you figure out how I feel. How dare you not just know? That's where a lot. I love that show because that's where the comedy comes from. Because I mean, like, if I was thrust into that position of suddenly being a land god, I'd probably be a little too busy trying to figure out what the hell that even meant. To be like, I love you. So I don't know, I like their relationship, I like how it's deepened and they're able to kind of fall into each other's rhythm, and I love that they've kind of got that back and forth like vaudeville-like pattern where they're like, you did this, and you did this, and aha, you're an idiot, and whatever. So yeah, I feel like I have playing the supernatural, slightly exacerbated servant down pat. Played him a few times in my life. You over here, you're pointing, it's Sebastian, you're dressed as Sebastian, yes, we'll over you.
Okay, so you talk a lot about how you don't like having to pick a favorite character. So now I've got a trap for you. What's your least favorite?
Man, I will never say. Well, 2 reasons. First of all, I would have, if I had a least favorite character and I said it, that character is somebody's favorite. And they would be like, heartbroken, and whatever. And I've also, and this is absolutely true, I don't have a character I don't like because it's a great job. Like my job as an actor is to be that character, and it's, if I can't find something about that character, even if I'm not the intended audience for the show, which is frequently the case, you know, I find something about the character or the story that sucks me in, and I'm like, well, you know, this is a story for somebody, and it's a great honor to get to be part of the, you know, the cast that gets to tell it. So I take it very seriously, even if I'm not the person that show is aimed at. That's what acting is, and it's all about using your imagination. And if I can't find something about a character that I like, you know, then it's a failure of my own imagination, and I'm frankly in the wrong business. So I have never played a character I don't like.
Let me clarify, you can also say ones you haven't played.
Well, I haven't. I hate all the characters I haven't played. Every single one of them. I'm like, oh, why is Todd doing that? I should be doing that character. Why is Vic playing that? I should be, no. Why is Brina playing that? I should be that character. No. Life is too short to hate on stuff. But thank you. Yes, you in the hat right there. Yes, just point at yourself.
What is the most difficult?
Easy for you to say. Don't be intimidated by me. I'm a jackass. You've seen this, right? Purple. My favorite color is purple.
What is the hardest character for you to get into, and what was like the hardest character you've ever played?
That's a good question. I'll think about that for a second. They're all, sometimes depending on where their voice sits, it's hard to find the voice comfortably. Scar was really difficult because he's so low and gravelly, and he's also so brooding that sometimes the characters that are flat, in terms they don't emote very often, they're harder to play because I find, well, okay, compare like someone like Scar with like Kamui from D. Grayman. Like Kamui is insane, and Kamui is very energetic, but you can just watch that animation and hear the original Seiyu, and like that, the animation and the energy of the character kind of leads you into the read that is required. With a character that speaks more just kind of flat, who kind of wears their emotions so close to the vest that everything just sort of comes out like this, it's harder because as an actor, you like to play with subtext, and it's so hard to define, like, okay, how do I, if I'm just, everything's gonna be flat and kind of emotionless because that's who this guy is, it's harder to sometimes go there because you feel like, as an actor, but like, oh, but if I just maybe twisted this syllable up a little bit, it would be a little, yeah, and you're like, no, too much emotion, pull it back. So the characters that are very, very dry and very emotionless, which is not to say that they don't have a very rich inner life, it just means how it comes out here is very flat and very measured. Those, for me, tend to be the most difficult to play, because as an actor, you're like, oh man, I feel like I'm not communicating anything. I feel like I'm just saying lines. But the director will be like, no, it's all right, that's what this character's doing. This character's just putting words out there as like a shield, and so you get it. But those characters are actually surprisingly difficult. The very high energy ones are actually much easier for me, because as I said, the animation just kind of leads you into the read. Because when you see Kamui Lee jumping up and down and flailing his arms, you know he's not going to sound like this. You know what I mean? So does that answer your question?
A
Follow-up question. Purple.
No, not my question. Have there ever been days where you just like come out of the studio and you're dead tired and like?
Never. I'm Superman. Yeah, no, there are frequently days when I come out of the studio and I'm dead tired and look at myself in the mirror going, look at my life, look at my choices. I'm an actor, we all go through that. But yeah.
What's been like the worst experience?
I don't, why do you want to know? The Steins Gate thing was probably the most emotionally wrecking later. I had to get away from that show after we were done. When we wrapped, I was like, thank you everyone, I love you, boom. When like there was a little Michael-shaped cloud in the studio. Because I had to find me again. So I had, Okabe wears a lab coat, and I had worn the lab coat while I wrote. I never wore it to the studio because I didn't want them to contractually obligate me to do that every time I came in. There's already the damn Snuggie to worry about, so I'm like, I don't want to be like the guy that has to wear costumes. That seems weird. But I had a sort of an emblematic, this lab coat that I would usually write in, just to whatever. and I burned it when I was done. Like in a kind of a, not like a screw you, like it wasn't like that. Like, you know, die, kill it with fire. It was, I gave it kind of a Viking funeral, just kind of say goodbye to the character. No, really, it's true. And if you see the show, the reference to Vikings and Nordic mythology is very appropriate. So I'm like, I'm gonna give this a nice proper burning and burial, and that's how I get away from it. That's how emotionally involved that show was. So thank you. Boba Fez.
Or Michael Tatum.
I'll accept it.
Josh Grohl tells the story at this con how he got the audition for the role of his character in Psychopaths. He saw the character, it's like, that's J Michael Tatum character. He has glasses, he's stoned. Oh, just didn't take Michael Tatum in the audition. It's like, oh, I got.
Oh, did he?
I'm curious, like, you probably already know that, but did you even take any other actor to get a role, or did that happen for you?
Oh, actors steal from each other all the time. The biggest defender is me and Ian rip each other off all the time, Ian Sinclair. Ian is a remarkable actor, and we are often up for many of the same roles. So if we walk into the audition lounge, we'll be like, oh hi. Who are you trying out for? Oh, of course you are. Well, Brett Blair. And then we'll come out, and then frequently, some directors, like in Carnival, Bevins, the director, cast both of us against type. And he was like, Ian, you're gonna get this role, and I want you to play it like Tatum. Tatum, I'm gonna give you this role, and I want you to play it like Ian. And we're like, do we have to fight now? And we did, and I won. No kidding. But Ian's a dear friend, and I think that imitation is like the sincerest form of flattery, so when like Ian does his impression of just me as a person, it's devastatingly funny because it's so on point. And I'll do my impression of Ian, and he laughs kindly and walks away. But yeah, frequently, I sometimes will base characters on other people that I've known. Domeki and Hollick was based on the engineer that was recording it at the time, who actually kind of looked like Domeki and had kind of that mannerism. He was very, very low-key, very deep voice, and just kind of like, yeah, you're a moron. And I'm like, I'm just gonna study your mannerisms for a second and kind of use them in the booth, and I did. And to this day, he's so tickled, 12 years later, that I know that's really me in there. It is. Oh, I can't. I see, and I'll be around. I'm kind of also a bit of a social chameleon. When I'm around someone long enough, I begin kind of taking on some of their traits. So it's like I don't have a personality of my own, so I steal other people's. It comes in very handy professionally. You, front row.
This is a 18th birthday present for my niece, and I want to know if you'd sing her happy birthday.
Oh, God. Everyone wants me to sing happy birthday. I will say happy birthday and will lead the room in happy birthday, because I'm not a singer. Everyone thinks my singing voice is pleasant, and I promise you, it's more like, happy birthday! All right, what's her name?
Cassidy.
Cassidy. All right, everyone ready? We're going to sing happy birthday, Cassidy. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you.
Ta-ta-ta.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Cassidy. Happy birthday to you.
Pro tip, when it's your birthday, no one cares but you. It's true! No, I love you, but it's like, oh, it's my birthday. Everyone's like, good for you for being born.
So you said that you have a lot of funny recording stories, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us your Sebastian voice.
Someone's needy. How to do it myself? Well, you have to order me, first of all. They're like just telling me to do it. You have to order me. It's a formal request. It's quid pro quo, honey. Once upon a time, I was on a panel, and a very pushy fan wanted me to tell this story in a Sebastian voice. So I told the story in a Sebastian voice, and when a very pushy fan wanted me to tell a funny story, we could just do like this, all around, 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 around. Red wig and the ears and the chain, and there.
So what is your favorite type of character to play? Like a goofy one, a serious one, or a psycho one like gourmet?
I don't really have a favorite type either, because one of the appeals for me of acting is getting to kind of explore your range. So the type of character or the type of recording experience I like the most is when I'm playing a character that goes against my normal type, what's called your wheelhouse of types that you're known for playing. Like I can play the slightly fey and well-dressed villain. I can play the glasses-wearing anxious, teenager. I can play the dark horse. I can play the crazy mad scientist. Those are all well within my wheelhouse. But when I get to play things that go against type are the most fun, the most rewarding, because I'm like, oh cool, I get to dip into my bag of tricks and use something I've never used before. So those are my favorite. Scar definitely falls under that rubric because he was so different for me at that time, and I think Damian Clark's performance as Scar in the first series is amazing. So getting to stand in his shadow was a great honor. Inaru in One Piece was another big one. That was my first big voice where everything sort of came out like this. And my absolute favorite of the lot of that kind of voice was Isaac in Bakuno. Isaac and Miria, two of my favorite characters of all time because they're so romantic and so in love and so cool, and I love their life. How cool does your life have to be that you don't even know that you're immortal until 80 years have passed and you have an age? And you're like, oh, weird. You, darling, like the flower and the thing and the fatigues.
I have a request and then I have a question.
All right.
Okay, the request is, can you do your favorite France line and then the laugh?
That is my favorite French line, is the laugh.
So laugh twice.
Huh?
So laugh twice.
You have to tell me a knock-knock joke, though. Somebody, tell me a knock-knock joke.
Knock.
Who's there?
The doctor.
Doctor Who. And you had a question?
So, you just did none scene, right? With Bob Butler?
Yeah, so the nun scene.
Now you get the beast scene in season 3.
Yeah, that's what they tell me. It's acting, it's fine. It's not like we're really in the booth naked doing stuff. Everyone's like, ew, you're watching this stuff. Don't judge me, I've just got rent to pay. I don't mind. I'm not a very shy person, you may have noticed, nor am I easily weirded out by stuff. So Ian can be like, all right, here's what you're doing today. You're gonna be waltzing with a T-Rex shortly before burning down an orphanage. I'm like, awesome, cool. All in a day's work. Hi-ho. Like that's just hey, beats honest work.
So that's what I understand. There's some stuff maybe in season 3 if we ever record it or if we have. I don't know. I can't say.
Very sneaky.
You sir, glasses, second row.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how bootylicious is the acting crew?
How bootylicious is the acting? Myself included, or just everyone but me? Because I feel like I drive the average down. Oh, shut up. I don't need your pity. There's a few people that are not too hard on the eyes. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Again, oh man, all this stuff gets back to me, and someone will be like, oh, I hear you think I'm bootylicious. Slap! I was on the spot, I had to answer the question. You in the row there. Yes. Two things.
Have you ever seen someone who's double jointed in their elbows?
Mm-hmm. Where's this going? No, I'm good, thank you. I appreciate the offer, but I try to stay away from like chocolates and stuff. I appreciate it. Thank you, you're very kind. Triton, yes. IRS.
Lord Tatum.
I'm gonna get them to call me that.
I know you've kissed Ian St. Clair, and I'm wondering if you've kissed any other voice actors.
Maybe. Maybe not. I might have kissed Jerry Jewell for charity. He was really doing it for me. I was the charity. Jerry Jewell was cute, and I have a thing for redheads. He's as straight as they come, but I mean, it was for charity, and someone wanted Russia and France to kiss, and it was for like a children's charity. I'm like, well, I guess we just have to take one for the team, Jerry. That man, brilliant actor, he went for it. He did not flinch, and he just, unlike Ian Sinclair, who windmilled the whole time and then ran off. And I'm like, really? Really? I just had a certs. Jerry even slapped me on the butt and sat right back down smiling. Yeah. 1 down, 5 to go. All right. Yes, you darling, magic together.
Okay, so do you ever, so while you're in the booth and you get emotionally attached to these characters, do you ever like ship your own characters with others? And then do you like see other voice actors in the hallway like, oh, we're so cute together?
Not really, except in Titan, which, okay, let me explain. Whenever someone's like, who do you ship in Titan? I was like, oh my god, it's a show about death and murder and dying and stuff, and I don't thinking of anybody being shipped except all the characters in life. But, you know, I can get behind some Levi and heroin action, because it's not happening, let me just make that very clear. There's no time for dating, they're all running for their lives constantly. That's what sucks about it. They're like, oh, hey, do you want to go? Sure. Oh, okay, we're all dying now. Sorry, hit me up in a week, we'll see if our situation's any better. But I feel that there's room in that canon for that cannonball. That was a creepy way of putting that. But it's also funny because because Matt Mercer, who is a doll, and I love him, was always like teases me about that ship too. He's like, hey, Captain, my captain. I'm like, stop it. You run through, yes. Say again?
Could you do the 5 accents I'm about to say?
Maybe.
Okay, so, Russian?
The Russian accent sounds a little bit like this. The French accent sounds a little bit like this.
Southern?
What kind of southern? What kind of country southern? I'm a southern boy, so we're getting into my territory now. Well, you got your Texas southern, which is kind of like this. Then you got your Alabama southern, which is more like this. That's all I can do in southern voice, by the way. British, cool. What kind of British? Do you want blue blood received pronunciation, or do you want Cockney, or do you want Northern Sutherland where they're all like, hello, how are you? What? German. Oh, German. Have I done the German before? German. Really shouty voice? You're so specific. You're like, no, shout. No, stare at me while you do it, Tatum. Don't play. Stare at me. Take your shirt off. What do I do this for? German would sound like this, but I'm nothing compared to Patrick Sykes. That's hard to do. All right, next question. Yes, Club 10, Sebastian.
So I've heard you talk before about the differences between Sebastian in season 1 and season 2. As a fan, can you talk about Sebastian in season 3 and that difference?
I can't even talk about it as a fan.
Then those season 1 and 2, can you talk
Season
about
1 and season 2, what I love about the sort of arc that Sebastian follows is, I don't think Sebastian, so the first thing you have to keep in mind is, for all his charm and for all his, butleriness that we all love, for all his suave, nature and everything, Sebastian is a demon who simply wants to eat. And his way of doing that is to dress himself up in the appropriate camouflage so he can hunt. That is what being that butler is all about. So you have to understand his disguise, or his attitude, his personality is a disguise that is more a projection of what CL needs than anything that's actually there in Sebastian's own personality. It's an act, it's a role he's playing so that he can have dinner. Just the way that some creatures camouflage themselves so they can get close to their prey, because he's a demon. And I don't know that a demon would necessarily have anything that human beings could comprehend as a personality, they're kind of a force of nature, and I'm not talking about demons in the Christian sense necessarily, but in the more sort of Greek sense, where demons were just spirits of the air that were kind of avatars of one's destiny, and they tended to align themselves to one singular person, for good or ill. They might be bad or they might be good. It didn't really matter. They didn't think of themselves in those terms, and that's the kind of demon I think Sebastian is supposed to be. So he's kind of without human personality because he's not human. So insofar as he has a human face, It is a projection of CL's unconscious, and that's why he looks like his father, because CL needs a father figure. And so that's what he responds to, and that's why Sebastian is who CL needs, and that's what gets him close to him, so he can have a soul. By the end of season 1, and in the beginning of season 2, you begin to see that I think out of mutual respect for how mature and capable CL himself has gotten, because in a way, let me ramble here and talk like a weird academic giving you lessons in poetry, but the thing about CL's character is CL starts out fairly unlikable. He's kind of a whiny trust fund brat who can't even tie his own shoes. And you're like, oh, your family was murdered and that sucks, but you're still a jerk. But then you begin to understand him and his plight and what he's trying to go through, and you begin kind of, I think, relating to him almost against your will because he's such a compelling character. And Sebastian, more so than just being a butler or his father figure or whatever some of you creepy people think is going on there. Ew! We've been through this. Sebastian gets nothing out of that. Oh my God. But apart from all that, I think you have to understand that CL is a child that has experienced one of the most tragic things anyone can experience. He's been thrust from his sort of idyllic childhood into this very dark world of betrayal and murder, and nothing is what it seems, and he has to grow up way too fast. And so I think Sebastian has come to represent the very sort of complex moral consciousness a person needs to navigate that kind of world and survive it. That there's good and evil in that. And so Sebastian is this very, very controversial and complex idea that is sort of driving CL to his destiny, without which he wouldn't be able to survive. And so I think as Sebastian becomes aware of his role in CL's life, he begins to see him not just as dinner, but as someone that he has mutual respect for. And so by season 2, I feel that the mask that Sebastian has worn of the butler, the imminently capable demon butler, that mask and whatever's beneath it has fused into a new kind of person. And so I begin to think that his regard for CL becomes more sincere, and it's not just an act, and he begins to look at him as an equal. And it's wonderful to follow that arc, because it's hard to play someone who's not human, who's only pretending to be human. And so I've based all of my performance on Brina's performance as CL, which is she's exquisite and she's absolutely perfect. But I would get with her and we talk a lot, like, what does CL need? What is Sebastian tapping into so that he can be that for CL? And we would talk, and that's how I would frame my performance as Sebastian. And in season 2, I was going more independent because Sebastian was kind of running with that personality that CL had given him and was now making it his own thing, which is kind of cool. So yeah, does that answer? I realize it.
That was exactly what I wanted. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I see a blue sleeve or like a teal sleeve. Hi. Black Blood Brothers. I love saying it, right? Jiro is my first ever lead role, and I was directed in that role by Brina, of all people. Thank you. I had a really good director, and it's just a fun show. And like, not only with me, because I was a goth kid, right? Totally was a goth kid. Still kind of am at heart. But I mean, like, so my first true lead role was not only I'm being directed by Brina Palencia, who I love, but it was a vampire. I win. Thank you. Let's see, who hasn't asked a question yet? You in the aisle. Yes, you right there. Yeah, you just heard. Look.
I wanted to know what you drew on, or what helped you decide how to play Sukiyama's particular brand of crazy.
Sukiyama. Okay, I love the over-the-top characters who are so offensive that you can't help but like laugh and be made very uncomfortable by them. Those are really fun to play because I like going there. Like, these are people I'm like, oh my god, I would never ever want to see this person in real life, but I would love to play them on TV. There's something wrong with me. When I first, so Monica Rial and Josh Greeley were working on the adaptations months before it hit Booth, and I lived next door to Monica, and she was like, "Oh my God, honey, when this comes up, please try out for Sukiyama. Like he's you." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And I started watching the show, and I'm like, "I'm not sure if I resent that or if that's really cool." So I mean, he speaks French and he dresses, I mean, people like, he comes on screen, he's wearing these really loud clothes that everyone else goes, "Oh my God," and I'm over there going, "I like that, I would totally wear that." I would totally wear that. That's a bold statement. And then you have Austin Tindall in the role of Kaneki, who's sublime. And I got to work on the show as a director as well. So when it came down, Mike McFarlane needed help because we were doing the direct broadcast thing. And he was like, if you could just come in at night and like direct yourself and direct Austin and some of the bits, that'd be great. That'd be helpful for me. I could focus on all the other performances. So true story. When I did the hanky scene, I may have told this yesterday, but I'll tell it again for those of you who didn't hear it. There's a handkerchief scene. Everyone know what the handkerchief scene is? Okay. So when I had to record that scene, I was by myself with just me and my engineer, Dominique. Dominique was new. Didn't really have much of an idea of anime. He never really watched it. He was a good engineer. And he was like, oh yeah, I've just never really watched anime, but cool. He knew his job, and it was awesome. And I'm like, okay, cool. We watch the scene in Japanese, so I can tell him what we're gonna do. And he goes, man, that's messed up. I'm like, isn't it? So I'm like, all right, we're gonna go in there and we're gonna record it real quick. So we're gonna do this. I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna put the headphones on. I'm gonna tell you to go ahead and play it once, and then just put it on loop. And we're gonna do this entire scene a couple of times, maybe 3 or 4 times. And just chase me with the dial because my volume's gonna be all over the place. So just be ready. I'm gonna rehearse it for you so you kind of know what to expect with my volume, because that's the hardest thing to do is try to do a scene like that, because one minute you're here and the next you're up here, and you know the engineer has to chase it on their safety dial, otherwise you ruin the entire take. And I'm like, I need that flexibility, so I'm teaching him how to chase me, which is hard. And so I get in there and we do it a couple times, and I'm like, okay, cool. Now we're gonna do it for real. So I need you to do me a favor. Just hit record rather, and don't watch me. Don't look at me. I'm like, don't look at me. Like, it's a big glass wall. Like, he can see everything if he wants to. I'm like, just look back down at the WAV file and do not look at me and what I have to do to make this scene work. Because I feel like I have to contort and do all kinds of crazy things and be really, really big-eyed and weird. And seeing a person actually do that in the booth is kind of unsettling, especially if you know the measure director. I got in the booth and I did it, and I did 2 or 3 takes, and we were done. I'm like sweating, and I'm like, how did we get it? And I looked out at Dominique is looking straight at me going. And I come out, I'm like, oh. I look out, I sit down, and he just kind of goes. And then Greeley was directing just down the hall, and he wrote that particular scene. So I'm like, oh my God, you gotta come in and see this, Greeley. Tell me what you think. You wrote the scene, let me know if you can. I showed it to him, and he was like, oh my God, you're amazing. And we're like holding each other and jumping up and down. We just did this amazingly hard scene, it was great. And Dominique is like, what have I gotten into? What the hell is going on? And then so much so, like Dominic, he was totally pro about it, but like later on we had to do the second handkerchief scene, and Dominic goes, another one? What is with him and that damn hanky? And I'm like, oh, this one's even bigger. He's like, oh my God, this is the weirdest thing I've ever done in my life. I can't tell my parents what I do. I cannot tell my parents what I do for a living. I'm like, just tell them you work at a runway fashion show. It'll be fine. How many minutes do I have left? I've got about 10 minutes left. So we're going to try to do as many questions as possible. So we're going to do lightning rounds. So if you got a question, make it one question and make it a quick one that I can riff on. You in the front row, don't you?
How did you get into voice acting?
I was tricked into it. True story. I was an actor, and I hadn't acted for a long time because I was following on the career path because, things happen in life. And then Christopher Bevins at Funimation was like, hey, I want you to come in and audition for me. And I'm like, what? No. And he wore me down for about 2 weeks, and then finally I came in because I thought he would break my kneecaps if I didn't audition. And under protest, I came into audition hoping I would screw it up so he would leave me the hell alone because I had no interest in acting again. I was just, no, that was another time in my life. I'm not that. That's not me anymore. And I came in and I stepped out of the booth after 4 hours of auditioning, which was unheard of. I was like, how do you people get anything? I'd come out, I'd signed like some what I thought were NDAs that he'd thrown at me, which were non-disclosure agreements for the stuff you've worked on. And I'm like, how do you people get anything done? It takes you 4 hours to audition every single person. He's like, it didn't. It took us 5 minutes. We've actually just recorded the first 6 episodes, and you signed a contract. So you're an actor, screw you. You'll be back here next Sunday. I'm like, what? And that's how I became a voice actor. You with the cool, like, dotted sleeve.